Hello everybody, and welcome to my very first ever YouTube video. And today I'm going to be talking about Kingdoms Reborn, specifically where you want to set down your starting city. This will be a bit of an intermediate guide. I'll assume you kind of know how to play the game, and we'll jump into it. So let me load up a new game here. I will be talking mostly about normal and hard difficulties. Things are a bit different if you're playing Immortal or Deity. You have a lot more food consumption. You're going to need a lot more coal and charcoal, and your early game tech pathing will be different. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm just going to keep everything your standard basic medium settings and start the game. So a lot of you guys know this probably, but avoid cold areas because you'll need much more coal and charcoal to keep your people warm. And they'll spend a lot more time just kind of going back to their houses in the middle of winter to go warm up. And so they'll be a lot less productive. So you just kind of want to avoid any sort of like cold areas. And then you also need trees. I'm playing as the duchies. For the Emirates, you need fewer trees, but you still need trees. So don't pick any city place without a good solid access to trees. So the thing to kind of know about this game is that beer, pottery, and furniture kind of suck. Like they have annoying inputs that you need to come up with, and then they also have issues where they just don't produce that many like luxury goods per person, and so it's a huge labor sink and a huge resource sink. Now you will need to use one of them or maybe two to actually get the 3 tier 1 luxuries that you need. But as much as possible, you want to rely on tulips and you want to rely on cannabis. So the first two things to look for after just kind of avoiding any cold areas or areas without trees is a location like this that is right next to tulips and right next to cannabis. Because if you can get both these going, then you're going to be in a significantly advantageous position economically. If you can only get one, which sometimes happen, especially if you're playing on a smaller map or if you're playing a multiplayer where a location like this will get snapped up like immediately, you can get away with just one. It just means you'll probably have to rely on beer and pottery instead of just pottery to get you through to those upgraded houses. The next thing you should look for, like in an ideal sort of place, after you find a location with 2 or tulips and cannabis, or if you can only find a place with cannabis or with tulips, the next thing you should kind of like hope for is grassland. So the reason why you want to look for a grassland province is that the most efficient food source early game until you get breweries going up are ranches, pig ranches, sheep ranches. They're both really, really good, and grassland gets a bonus to them of 35% at level 1, and then when you upgrade your town hall to level 2, you can take the plus 100 influence upgrade, which is the most powerful like location-based upgrade in the game, and it essentially means that you can freely buy new provinces and expand without ever having to use money. It's absolutely incredible. So if you can also take a grassland province, I would say your first priority is still to get both tulips and cannabis, but if you're in a situation where those situations are all taken, you can go with something like here, which is it says it's a forest province, but what the game looks for when deciding what bonuses that you're going to get isn't the province name, it's the majority of tiles that your town hall is on. So if you place your town hall kind of like right here, it's going to give you the grassland bonuses, and then you can immediately buy this one with your starting money and just kind of like start clear cutting your way to it, and then get your cannabis up and running. So this would not be a terrible place to start, though obviously it's suboptimal, but sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles. A couple other things to look for in a starting location is ideally you want a river, to be near a river. I think it's nice to have. It's not like super required, and the reason is because you are going to need to produce other luxuries, specifically pottery. Pottery is the best of the furniture, beer, or pottery like luxuries. And the reason is because it can increase your science output. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to, make your city more powerful, richer, and like unlock new things, you're going to need science. So you should always be kind of thinking forward to pottery. So you're going to want some fresh water so you can produce clay, so you can produce pottery. But worst case is that you can just kind of buy the clay to produce the pottery, put your sustainability cards into your pottery production, and then just like mass produce tulips or cannabis or both, ideally, and just start selling them. And it's not going to be like a terrible thing. So if you can, find a place with near river. If you can't, that's totally fine. Let's see. And then finally, another really great way to get food, because you're going to need a lot of food because you want to expand your city as much as possible before eventually get bakeries, and that kind of solves the food issue. You're going to want to have ideally enough like forest or jungle so that you can place down orange or what are they called, to get gatherers. So you can put down gatherers, and then I typically put down 2 gatherers and then a hunting lodge like adjacent to the gatherers, because then they can all upgrade for being adjacent to each other, and that can produce a significant amount of food. And then it increases over time, because the older the tree is, the more fruit that is going to produce. So that's another really good way on top of ranches, because ranches, you have issues with like just finding the space for them because they're very large, and they can't be put down in deserts. So if you can't use ranches, use fruit gatherers, though there's a limit to the amount of fruit gatherers you can have because they kind of take up a lot of space, right? Because you can't clear cut the places around the fruit gatherers. And then like, I think the final food, your last option for food, because fish they just kind of suck in this game, are mushroom farms. And mushroom farms can be pretty good, especially if you start in a jungle province, which isn't super recommended because you have this disease frequency. So you're going to run through, you're going to need a lot more like medicine for your people, which is annoying. But worst case, you can throw down like very efficient mushroom farms in the jungle. So it's not like the end of the world. But yeah, so to kind of recap, the most important things for sure are to try and find both tulips and cannabis, or at least one of them. Second, you want to look for a grassland place or a place you can place down. They'll give you the grassland bonuses. Savanna also counts as grassland, so you can also throw down on a savanna province. And then lastly, you ideally want enough trees, both obviously to cut down, but also enough trees so that you can kind of set some aside to put down fruit gatherers. And yeah, or like worst case, you could go into the jungle and produce mushroom farms. If you're playing deity instead, I would say that finding a grassland is much more important, because you're going to have a lot less money to expand, so that extra influence is going to be super helpful, and it's going to make your ranches significantly better. And in deity, really, for the first couple of years, you're just trying to get food, essentially. You're trying to get food, and you're trying to get up to bakeries and windmills, so you can actually like make an efficient industrialized food production, just so you can feed your people, because in deity, like, the food consumption is kind of ridiculous. So in that case, I would say getting on grassland is more important than getting both cannabis and tulips. Just try and find one of them, because it's still going to give you a ton of money. It's still going to upgrade your stuff and give you more science and stuff like that. But I would say a place like this would almost be better in deity, just because you have the grassland province, as opposed to a location like this where you're going to be in a jungle, so you're going to have medicine issues, and you don't have a grassland sort of place to put down your town hall. So afterwards, I don't think it's super important to worry about like higher tier luxuries like coffee and cocoa, just because like every other game, like the early game is what's going to kind of set the pace, and getting through the early game quickly and making a lot of money and expanding quickly is going to be a lot more important for the power of your city than potential like mid-game considerations. Because like, especially when you get to mid-game, you'll have enough money to actually like buy things. I can throw down like coffee roasters and like just buy coffee in order to like take care of that. It's not like super efficient, but like, it works. So Yeah, I think those are the main things to think about when you're playing Kingdoms Reborn and kind of looking to set down a city. It's nice to have. There's like nice to haves. Like it's nice to be on the coast so you can get ports, but it's not like super needed. It's nice to be near like a village. You can get extra population, but it's not super needed. And then one final thing, I think you can kind of ignore coal early game because charcoal produces significantly more charcoal per like population than coal does, and you can put sustainability books or get the upgrade, and you won't use that much food or that much wood for your charcoal production. So coal is kind of like a little bit of a trap early game because it's just not something that you should really care about or use. Maybe once you get like really big, it'll be worth having like a coal mine with like 8 people in it, and you can put some production books in it and like make it work, and then you won't use as much wood. But charcoal is really what you should be using for most of the early game for literally any start. So don't really worry about coal too much early game. So yeah, thanks for watching my YouTube video, and hopefully I'll make another one of these. I don't know.